Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this keynote session. My name is Bea, and I'm going to take just a couple of minutes to introduce our keynote speaker. Matt is very kind to join us from a hotel room in Orlando. Please be patient. If he has any connectivity problems, just hang on and it will resolve itself. Everybody, welcome. I would like to welcome Matt Nick to the stage. Matt is the National Partnership Director for Sky Schools. He has been the Director of School Partnerships for Sky Schools and the International Association of Human Value since 2021. Before joining Sky Schools and IAHV, Matt had 12 years of experience as a high school teacher and an administrator, and 15 years of nonprofit leadership experience. In his role for Sky Schools, Matt helps create long-term partnerships with districts and states to bring the evidence-based world of Sky to more administrators, teachers, and students. And Matt also helps the Sky and IAHV teams share their work at leading national and international conferences. So let's welcome Matt to the stage. And just so you know, please ask all your questions and leave your comments in the comment section, and we'll have a question and answer session at the end. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Bea, for that introduction, and welcome everybody. As she said, please be patient. My internet has been very interesting in the last couple of days as I've tried to conduct some business and some other kinds of conversations from here in Orlando. But it's great to be with you. We're going to have a fun, interactive session, so buckle up. We have a lot to cover, and we're going to get right into it. So first thing to note, a few Glow housekeeping pieces. If you've not been to any Glow sessions before, all these sessions are going to be recorded and available for those who paid through the November 15th, actually for 6 months. And any questions you have for me, go ahead and put those in the chat. My email will pop up at the end, and I'm happy to send slides or any more resources. There's a lot of stuff that we do. Also, just really cannot thank Lucy and the team enough for this amazing Global Learning in an Open World conference. Given the situation we have in our world, anywhere you look around, if you make a mistake and turn on the news, you know that we need a lot more coming together across perceived differences to create the kind of world we all want to live in. So I'm so pleased and honored to be here to be with you and all the great people that Lucy has brought together. Really want to thank these sponsors, Human Education, and the silver and the bronze sponsors, My Hero and Digital Promise, and all the folks that have brought this conference into being. These are unsung heroes, people that are really looking to promote and help great organizations like Actionable Global Learning and all Lucy's been doing for many, many years, help all those folks flourish. So really thank you so much to our sponsors. Please make sure you share and connect, grab some screenshots, talk about this out there on your own social media channels using this hashtag. So important that we spread the word so we can make this event even bigger and better next year. So let's dive in. If you do get the slides, you'll have a little bit of background about why it is there and what I do. This is to get into just a teeny little bit. So IHV is International Association for Human Values. Sky Schools is a program of that, but we also have these other ones, Sky Prisons Campus. We're on 110 college campuses in the US, as well as some internationally. Women's empowerment, healing breaths for healthcare, all kinds of fantastic programs all around the world, and they all use Sky. Sky is an acronym. It stands for Sudarshan Kriya Yoga. It's a 20-minute daily breathwork practice. Most of you probably do not have a breathwork practice, so we're going to explain why that's helpful and important. We're going to connect that to the larger issues of wellness and leadership. So just so you're aware of some of the context, spinning, so I'm going to wait for a second until that stops. Awesome. I'm going to keep going. I hope everybody can continue to hear me here. So in the chat, in the comments right now, let's make sure that it's working. Please say who you are and say what you do for your own wellness, right? Who you are, where you're listening in from, and 2 things you do to take care of yourself. And then finally, what are 1 or 2 of your leadership strengths? So thinking about wellness and thinking about leadership, please drop those in the chat, because that's really what we're going to be connecting in our time together today. Awesome. Welcome from Chicago, Osmo. Love to do some more work with schools in Chicago. If you're watching this by recording, just take a minute and jot down those things. It'll really be helpful for you to reflect on what you do for your own wellness and how your leadership strengths show up. Those are the things we're going to be connecting in our time together today. Okay, great. We have some more folks connecting in here from, I really have a hard time seeing these comments. So I'm going to zoom in here a little bit and see if I can see some more places. Looks like Howell, Montana. We have B coming in from Columbia. We got Connecticut. Awesome. So thank you. Let's keep those comments coming in. What do you do for your own wellness, and what are some of your leadership strengths? As we reflect and think, we got Samantha coming in from DC. I see some yoga. So what I do for my own wellness, I do my breathing practices, Sky, which we're going to get into. I'm going to teach you a couple of breathwork techniques. And I do yoga 2 to 3 times per week. Walk. I believe in moving, so I'm a big fan of that kind of movement. I also make sure that I get some time by myself. That's important to me. So that reflecting could be doing a little word puzzle, working on my Spanish language and my Duolingo app. But these are some things that I do every single day, and it's important to just start with that question then of what is wellness? What does that look like, and how do we define it? Right. So we're going to talk about what is wellness. We're going to look at a little bit of breath. I'm going to teach you a breathing technique called victory breath, and then think about how to implement this in whatever community, whether it looks like the workplace, the city, all kinds of different places. So, what is wellness? This is the Surgeon General's Vivek Murthy, who's really put a lot of focus and attention on mental health, especially youth mental health. He said last summer at an event at UCLA with Oprah that youth mental health is the crisis of our time. This is one of the most important things we need to be working on. And so you can see he's got this 5-part wellness framework that really looks at wellness in the context of the workplace. So if we break down these different pieces, maybe some of these are givens, but if they're not givens, that's kind of something we need to really think about, right? So we have protection from harm, we have opportunity for growth, we have connection and community, we have work life harmony, we have mattering at work. So this is an example of workplace wellness. So what would it look like to create a quick little survey in your own school, your workplace, and think about, do all the adults there feel like they matter at work, they have connection and community, they have opportunity for growth, and they have work-life harmony. Hopefully they have protection from harm, especially if you're in a school or other kind of setting. That's a basic given, but there are many places in the world where we don't have that protection from harm, especially depending on the various identity characteristics that those individuals in that school, be they girls, be they LGBT, Q plus community members, right? Wherever we are, there may be some individuals who don't even get daily protection from harm. And so that's very important. So again, as you start to take some notes here and think about what is wellness for you, what is wellness in your community, then we need to begin to measure that and begin to track that. Here's another framework. This one is really challenging to see, and it's important. I left it there in its fullness. We could zoom in and take a couple of pieces of this. This is the World Happiness Foundation Wheel of Happiness, and you can see that there are several. Well, you can't. If you zoom in later, or you get this, you screenshot this, and then you zoom in, you'll see that there are several pieces going around in the sort of individual wheel, and then we go to the community wheel. So we have spiritual, financial, physical, mental, emotional, my mind, my connections, my family, my friends, my money, right? And these things then sort of flare out into all different aspects of work, of schooling and education, of community. And, it's a different way to look at sort of beyond Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? This is really what is, when we say wellness, do we mean happiness? Do we mean wholeness, right? Wellness versus wholeness. So with this new focus on wellness that we're finding, right, is that just another way for us to sort of beat ourselves up that we're not doing enough, that we should be doing more? I don't think that's the way we should think about it. I think we can frequently interchange wellness and happiness. And here by happiness, we don't mean mood, how I feel right now, or my perceived sense of myself, right? We mean this very holistic aspect of self. And once you say the word holistic or whole, then of course that includes all aspects of being human, which also includes being sad, being angry, being emotional, right? Having shadow work in dark places. So wellness doesn't mean that we discount all those things. If we're moving toward wellness and toward wholeness, we're going to take a more complete look at what's going on with all the people in our communities. So why is this important in schools? Well, in Sky, as you can see by this slide, we've been working in a whole lot of schools in a whole lot of places. And what we find is that if you ask people if they have stress in their day-to-day life or they have stress in their school, they laugh. Is there any stress in your school? And people begin to laugh aloud. Of course there is. Schools are stressful places. Schools are some places where they even cause harm and cause trauma because there's not enough adults to go around to help make sure that students are safe. And so in this work that we've done primarily in the US and in Latin America, and some other countries as well, Europe and other places, but very big programs in the US and Latin America, we've seen that when we answer that question of how to become well at school, right, Sky becomes one of the tools to do that. So this is another example of wellness, right? These are the Castle core competencies. So this is what schools have been looking at to try to create wellness. So the two orange are self-awareness, right, and self-management, right? So I'm both aware of myself and I'm also managing myself, responsible for myself, right? And then we have social awareness and relationship skills are the two green ones. And then we have responsible decision making. So if we can do those things, right, that's going to lead to wellness at school. Now that still doesn't, again, overlaying some of those other pieces, protection from harm, mattering at work. So schools have such a unique, we have workplace engagement and workplace wellness for the adults. We have educational and learning wellness for the students. Those aren't necessarily two different things, but they're overlaid and interplaying. The job of school leaders is to create workplace wellness for the adults. The job of school leaders is to create workplace wellness for the adults. The job of the adults is to create educational wellness, educational engagement for the students. Those two things, right? So leaders, you need to focus on adults. And you hear me say that again and again as we go through the various pieces here this morning. Please, if you have questions, drop them in. B is going to be monitoring the chat and the comments, and I may not see one, and I'm just going to keep on going. But I would really love to get some pushback and some feedback and some commentary on these. This is not a one-way conversation. So, is all stress bad? Is the question, right? Is all stress bad? The answer is no, right? Wellness is an awareness of our stress, right? So this is an old curve, the Yerkes-Dodson stress curve, which was first published in the 1930s. And what they found was there's something called eustress, something that needs to get you going, right? We need to move into we always say, get out of our comfort zone, get out of our safe space, right? We got to get into this learning zone, which is the edge of the yellow and the green, right? These are the spaces, I don't know if my cursor is showing up here. We're trying to get ourselves, but of course, as teachers, as caregivers, as parents, and if we're in healthcare, other kinds of places, it's so easy, especially in the pandemic, we saw how we can get into this burnout, exhaustion, fatigue, right? And so we got to know when that's happening and then what I do to go back. And so that question at the beginning of what I do for my own wellness, that's how I go, from red and orange back to yellow and green. And again, the edge of that green, right, is what we're trying to get to, not so that I'm atrophied, right? So that I can get some rest and restoration and come back. It can't happen once or twice a year. So if your answer to wellness in your school, your workplace is, oh, we have a wellness fair once a year, or we bring in, goats for yoga, we bring in puppies, during exam time. So we have care packages over the holidays. You don't do wellness or balance once a year. This has got to happen every single day. We have dental hygiene, we brush our teeth, right? We have mental hygiene. We have to take care of our mind, and we go our whole lives trying to get our mind to do things, and we don't ever learn at home or at school how to reset, refresh, recharge our mind. It happens, right, occasionally if we find a practice that works for us, but there's no intentional thought around how to do that. So breath is the fastest, most scientifically proven way to reduce cortisol. It can happen as little in 3 minutes. In a minute, we're going to try a breathwork practice, and you're going to see that. This is some of the data from James Nestor's book. He does not work for us. He took a Sky course a long time ago and realized that he had this powerful tool, right? If we were all in a big room and I would have you raise your hands, how many of you have been breathing your whole life, right? Hands, all hands go up. How many of you plan to keep breathing your whole life, right? In fact, that's the definition of life, right? Baby takes a first breath, inhale, cry, right? And then we know that spirit has left the body because they have taken their last breath. That's the thing we do consistently from end to end, from wall to wall of this experience on earth is breathing. And yet, if we target that breathing and shift that breathing and use that breathing as a tool, we can do amazing things. These stats are not typos, they're not misprints. Folks who practice Sky spend 200% more time in deep sleep, right? Most of us are 3 to 5%. This is 10, 15 to 20% in deep sleep. It doesn't take you any more time. Cortisol and prolactin are chemicals in the body. We can measure those. And then we also use Sky for anxiety, depression, all kinds of other things. And the data is real, 100 studies. You can go and look at that, and I can send it to you if that's what you're interested in. So I'm gonna jump into what it actually does, and we're gonna try breathing practice. So the vagus nerve is a key communication center that runs from the brainstem down into the organs. And you can see it's in yellow in the slide. And it's such an important muscle nerve connection, right? It's not a muscle, it's a nerve connection that we have not heard very much about. Some of you may have heard it, some of you may have really tapped into it, but it's something that we can really tune that pathway. We can really create vagal tone and become much more familiar with that. It's like when you drive that same road to work or walk that same pathway, from the home to the park, you know what that feels like again and again. And so we've got to get that vagus nerve really active and working. And what it does is it communicates to the organs, to the body, that you're safe, that you can rest, and you can reset and restore yourself. So it really goes beyond the mind. I'm sure you, just like I've had that experience of like, oh my gosh, you have a big meeting tomorrow. You need to get to sleep. You may have had a negative experience, and then you're going through that in your mind. You're writing a text message, you're composing an email, and it's just there. And then you, okay, let that go to sleep, right? And that does not work, right? Like, okay, forget about that, right? Forget about that comment that somebody said 3 days ago, 4 days ago. Or even worse, you say to a partner or a friend, relax, calm down. Never works, right? We have this thing in our mind that whatever we resist persists, right? So if you resist something, the more you resist, go to sleep. Why can't you fall asleep? The more that persists. So we can't control the mind at the level of the mind, right? So what this does, what breathwork does, is it bypasses the mind and goes right into the vagus nerve, right? That's what's happening here with victory breath. So you see the prefrontal cortex here, this important judgment center have, and students are still developing. When we get into a stressful situation, that floods with cortisol. So I can call that all red. And then what happens? Usually the amygdala takes over. The amygdala is a fantastic part of our brain, but it has limited options. Limited options. Flight, fight, freeze, freak out, fawn. It doesn't do very many things. Most of them start with an F word. So if we want the prefrontal cortex, which has all of our language and all the possibilities, to come back online, we got to give it a minute in that stressful situation. So that's where breath goes right to the vagus nerve and can help us bypass that. Should we try it, friends? Let's give it a go. So if you're in a space where you can do this, I want you to put your feet flat on the floor. If you're watching the recording, you can do the same thing. You can put your feet flat on the floor, and we're going to begin by whispering the word hello in English like this. So it's hello, hello. So in Spanish, you have so many ways that the J becomes the H, right? So just make that sound. Then you're going to seal your lips and push air from the back of your throat, and it's also going to make a nice sound like this. Hopefully you can all hear that. Now you're going to do that same technique, both inhale and exhalation, with a slight constriction in the back of the throat. Should sound a little like Darth Vader, right? Or the ocean. If you can't hear, you can put your hands on your ears or your fingers and just gently close your ears a little bit and try that. Inhale, exhale through the nose, make that nice ocean sound. You go ahead and look down if it's comfortable, close your eyes. It's okay, everybody's doing this and nobody can see you. You're all in a safe space. Just take a minute to come back to that really deep victory breath breathing. Take two more breaths. Now just go back to regular breathing, nothing special. Keep your eyes either looking down or closed. Don't do anything, just settle into yourself wherever you are. And now one more time, let's come back into the victory breath, back of the throat and make that deep ocean sound. Inhale and exhaling through the nose, gently for three victory breaths. And then one more time, regular breathing, nice and slow and gentle, nothing special. Just let the breath come in and out naturally through the nose. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes or look up, come back into our space. And I'd love to hear some more questions here. So if you want to drop a question or comment in the chat, how's that experience? Or if you have any questions about that, I'm sorry about the sketchy internet. So please drop a question or comment into the chat. Thank you, Cindy. Love it. Wow. Felt very relaxed. My brain was empty. Love it. Other comments? Great. Same. Yeah. Thank you. The same. Yeah. So this is a calming breathing technique. Um, we have other ones that build energy, right? So the beauty of this work is that you just stack these different breath techniques. We have power breath, we have victory breath, we have straw breath, we have candle breath. And after 20 minutes, you've done a whole bunch of different breathing techniques and you're just counting. And what that does, you may have experienced, you heard different sounds. He's got a bunch of dogs outside that you may have heard the air conditioning system in the building where you are, or the heat, or cars outside. All of a sudden you become more attuned to the sounds around you. So if you just take a few minutes and do one of those, and you can see where this would be really helpful before a Spanish quiz or before we're going to go through a difficult math equation, that sort of thing. Just that sense of transitioning from one experience to the other and grounding. right? What it also does is help the students to realize that whatever that comment that somebody said really isn't that big a deal. I've got all the answers I need within me. And again, it's just a little touch of that. We can really build and do a lot more work around that. The breath gives us a way to anchor and to go inside. It's a sort of a railing, if you will, into the interior space where then we can do all kinds of work to heal and improve. So let's look at a couple of examples of how this works, right? So the way we measure this in schools is surveys, right? So we couple the breath work with a strong social emotional learning curriculum, but we also have lots of validated scales. There's a burnout and depression index. There's all kinds of other validated scales that we can use. And then finally, and most importantly, is school-based metrics. So you'll hear how we measure this. And that might look like attendance or disciplinary referrals or incidents of violence. Like, what are those metrics that we really care most about in a school? And maybe it's just a sense of calm, a sense of community. So here's one study that came out, and I want to take a minute to really focus our attention in some very key areas. So there's 6 different measures of well-being. If you grab a screenshot, click on this, or just Google Sky Yale study, you can see a great video about this. This came out in 2020, right during the pandemic. I want to be real careful about sample size. This is 200 Yale students, right? So this is not thousands and thousands. We have studies that have larger sample sizes, and there's 29 in the control group. So that's an important piece too, that this, the folks that might look at this and want to challenge the study because of those numbers, we really stand by it because of the huge discrepancy in the students that got the sort of MBSR or Yale ruler, the control practices versus the Sky practices. So in the 6 measures, stress and well-being way down, which is where you'd want them. But let's pay attention to these two here: mental health and social connectedness. Breathing together in a room is an act of vulnerability. It doesn't seem like it is. So we want to really build trust, and we have facilitators that would come in. And again, as you think about wellness in the workplace, even asking that question, what do you do for your wellness? Somebody may say, I pray, right? And that's sort of revealing their religious background, or I walk my dog, or I do woodworking. It's personal, right? And so this idea of social connectedness is so important. And another huge wellness factor that we're hearing is the health and medical costs of isolation and loneliness. Our technology, right, where we are right now, has separated us, right? We're all in different countries in different parts of the world, and it's amazing we can come together, but we have to come fully together and not just partially together. So social connectedness went way up, and then of course, positive emotions and mindfulness, right? This is another really interesting one. What is mindfulness? It's being aware of, paying attention to what's happening inside of our mind, our brain, our perceptions on purpose, with joy or with a positive sense, right? Not judging in a way, we're just observing. And so the breath work allows you to see what's happening, as we said, what's happening with sounds or what may be going on elsewhere in your existence, right? You weren't aware of until you started doing this breathing. So this study really looks at these measures of well-being in a very comprehensive way. And if you check out that video, you'll see that it may impel you to give this a try. More importantly, it will say if we are struggling, right? If we have to discuss and to share the challenges that they're going through and the challenges they're facing, right? Then let's come up with some more tools that aren't drugs and aren't one-to-one counseling and therapy, because there's never going to be enough counselors for kids. I don't care how fast we license people or how many people we try to move into that sphere. There are just never going to be enough counselors for the students' needs, let alone the adults' needs, right? So those are the 2 tools, at least in the West, in America, right? And I'm not sure how it is in Latin America, that we generally go at mental health challenges: one-to-one therapy and drugs. Here's a technique that we can teach to 100 people all at once, and we give the wellness to the learners. So those are some things to think about. So beyond stress and depression or loneliness and some of those things, let's get back to some of those school-based metrics. So increased executive function means a decrease in disruption in class behaviors. So they're not just talking about violence in the middle. We saw that in Newark, in a school in Milwaukee, a huge decrease in disruption, distraction. Same thing with a middle school in Long Island. Some comments that teachers might make are, before I did Sky, I would have about 100 disciplinary referrals per year. After I did Sky as an adult, I had 3 or 4, Did the students' behavior change? Or did my perception of behavior change? Or did my classroom community change? Maybe all those things did. What that teacher said to me then was, yes, it's really interesting. Students will regularly say to me, I do not like chemistry at all, but you are my favorite teacher. And I really love being in your classroom because of the way you create community. And that's 3 to 4 minutes of breath work. That's getting to know kids' names. That's really just really intentionally thinking about how she can create wellness in the space before they look at chemistry or while they're looking at chemistry. So those are some of the ways that those school-based metrics and that focusing on adults can really help school leaders transform culture and community. One of our case studies, the slide speaks for itself. We're there for 9 years, and you can see that this just dramatically improved performance. The school started with about 100 students consistently making the honor roll to now, it's actually over 1,000. There's about 2,000 students in the school, so that's half the school. Because you got to 10 to 15% of the most disruptive, most distracted students focused and able to move forward, everybody else could focus and move forward. Disciplinary incidents, violence, any kind of way that you want to look at performance in the school has gone up. And this became integrated into the PE class is where this lived in the school. So for us, this is how we measure wellness. The word that got off the slide is Sky School's Wellness Metrics 23-24. So this is what we're measuring in our pre and post survey: isolation, belonging, anxiety, perceived stress, empathy, and pro-social behavior. And those are just survey data. So say just before they do the program, and post after the program. So very important data that we gather, but not the same thing. We can also get biometric and biofeedback data. We just have a study that's about to be published with UCLA where we used Fitbits, and one with Stanford where we used hair samples to measure cortisol as the students are doing the breath work. I'm going to pause here for questions. I do want to talk a little bit about racial equity and some other things and how that relates to wellness, but I want to see if there are questions or other things that I can address right now. So I'm going to look at the chat here. Yeah, so Cindy, thanks for that question. How difficult was it to incorporate in schools? The answer is it depends which school. Um, the first thing is getting school leaders to understand what breathwork can do, what the power is. So this is something we do. We give them some data and then give them the experience for themselves. So the way Sky is actually taught is not in this kind of a session, 90 minutes. There's no slides. We actually teach it over 3 consecutive days at 2.5 hours per day for 3 days. And the reason for that is because we're trying to develop a personal practice. So we give people a 40-day challenge and we do 3 days in a row. They're already, 3 days toward that challenge because we're really trying to change habits. Basically, we're saying 20 minutes a day. Can you commit to 20 minutes a day, even 15, right, to really improve your mental and your physical health? Is that worth it to you? And so it's not a usual kind of teacher training or professional learning at all, where it's listen to somebody go through slides for 3 days. It's really you and your own story, and then you and your own breathing in lots of different ways, where we sort of work up to that full Sky breathing. So that's the ideal situation, that school leaders would really learn that Sky breath. And then once you have some leaders that learn it, then of course, whatever classrooms are going to be working in, that 3rd grade teacher, that 5th grade teacher, the 9th grade PE department, wherever it's going to live, those folks need to know it, because new knowledge attaches to old knowledge. That's why we learn languages or math in a way. We just keep stacking new knowledge on old knowledge, and that base is so important, right? That's why we have review. There's no knowledge base for a 20-minute daily breathwork practice. So that's what's important. So we have to create that whole base and then build on that base for those school leaders. So it is difficult and challenging because people didn't have it. We say literacy intervention or math intervention, right? We had those things when we were growing up, a new way to do reading or to teach reading, right? You didn't have breath work in high school. So therefore, you don't even know what breath work is or why breath work would be helpful or how breath work might be different than meditation or different than mindfulness. It's just targeted breathing to activate the vagus nerve. It's a very physical activity, even though nobody's going to get injured. So yes, there are some challenges to implementing. B's question here is, how do schools get started? Is generally one adult, right? So it could be a teacher or a counselor or a principal. We have a short demo session, and then it can go. We have many teachers throughout Latin America, throughout North America, and so we teach, of course, in English and in Spanish. And you can do a short demo session, and then those are free, those are zero cost. And then, but again, this is not a sky commercial. Really, coming back to that wellness piece is, how do you change culture? How do you change strategy? What does that look like, right? And so, if the school wants to focus on wellness, suggestions are to get sort of a small working group of what that would look like. Really think about how we know that the focus on wellness, or a workplace that's focusing on wellness, how will we know we're getting there, right? Or we're making progress towards that? And what are the outcomes we're expecting? What do we want to see? What will more work-life balance look like for adults? What will more school-life balance look like for the students? So really getting very clear on what success looks like. Then Sky or other kinds of things can be part of that strategy. And it may be that you and your colleagues or your team go in a different direction, and you do much more. Excellent tool. So it's one that we really highly recommend, but it's not the only tool. So thank you for those questions. I'll see if there are others as we go. So I want to just address racial equity for just a second. This brings us back to the summer of 2020 and the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis. At that point, we launched a campaign called Breathe With Me. And it's important to note that both George Floyd and Charles Gardner on Staten Island had the life literally squeezed out of them. Their breath was taken from them. That's how they were killed. And I can't overstate that, right? This idea of breath as life, right? And those gentlemen, right, those individuals in our communities were denied that experience of being able to breathe. So we launched a campaign, a program called Breathe With Me, led by our African American teachers, primarily directed at the African American community. We have a number of different single focuses of different sort of what we call affinity groups, uh, programs for women, programs for different parts of our population. And this is a specific one for the Black community. That then you pull back to the larger lens to say, how does identity and wellness, how do they connect together? And as I said at the top, right, that protection from harm piece in any kind of workplace, of course we need to have safety. We need to have a situation where we can walk into our workplace, walk into our home, and not worry for our physical body. And some folks have that privilege, and some folks don't. And so what does that look like? And how does this doing something that's very tangible, very concrete, very physical together, how does that create and promote equity? Those folks that are really interested, we have a program in that's based in Washington, D.C. called Fit DC. That website is just fitdc.com. And if you scroll around there for the Black community. So that's an ongoing program that's based right now in DC. I'm going to skip by that one. That's a great testimonial. So later on, again, this comes back to our principal in Newark talking about how effective this program was. But I really want to get into implementation, going back to the questions that came up before. How do we get started, or is it difficult? And this is the concept that you've heard many times, I'm sure, culture versus strategy, right? Where culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? So what's the culture in your community? Is it a culture of wellness? Is it not? Why isn't it? So really thinking about that culture piece first, you're going to get to the point of culture change and culture shift. Whew, very challenging. Strategy is very important. And again, you've got to really figure out, are we dealing with a cultural piece or a strategy piece? And the culture piece is your workplace or your school culture, right? It's not the wider societal culture, which of course has an influence on the workplace or the school culture. So in schools or organizations, if they contain youth, you got to begin with the adults. The adults control the schedule, the requirements, right? They run school land, right? The adults are in charge. Um, and so you have to begin with the adults, and then you can move to students, and then you have to think about long-term sustainability. And Sky, we build some of that sustainability in because we have a certification program and we're facilitator driven. So we have a person coming in to teach this that's been through 150 hours of yoga like certification. So we build some of that sustainability into the conversation. And so that's something you want to check in with other folks. How long is the training? Is it sort of train the teachers and the teachers turn on and teach it? And that's what a lot of social emotional learning curricula are in the classroom. And those are very challenging, right? Many teachers, their subject areas. I was an English teacher. I can tell you a lot about Shakespeare. And until I shifted and did a lot of nonprofit work, I wasn't as strong or confident in DEI or LGBTQ issues or gender issues. Now I've developed that confidence through working outside of the school. But had I just stayed in my English classroom for the last 25 or 30 years, I would not have the same confidence that I do in addressing some of those other issues. So the sustainability piece is really important, and really thinking about how long the trainings are, who's leading the trainings, and what requirements the split mind that our teachers have of learn, teach, learn, teach. I learned today from the trainer, and then tomorrow to teach it to my sixth graders are very challenging. And so the facilitator model is we're going to come in and the teachers never have to teach it unless they want to, if they choose to. Otherwise, we're going to come in for 6 days, 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years. And then teachers that want to become certified can do that. There's lots of other models out there which provide lots of support. Could be technological support or other kinds of support to make sure that there's really something that can start and then be sustained in the school. So that's something that whatever change you're thinking about, that this conference or others have really spurred you to, is really think through that sustainability piece. So that's my email, mattnaked@ihv.org. This is our website, skyschools.org. I'll put those up there now, and then I'm going to go to another question slide and make sure that your questions are being answered. Wow, Natalia, hello from Ukraine. I'm so glad that you made it. I hope that this has been helpful for you. Other questions, please drop them in the comments. I can teach another breath technique. We can do a little guided meditation. I can tell some jokes, whatever's helpful, people. B is requesting one more technique. All right. Excellent. Let's do that. So the one we're going to teach is called straw breath. And again, if we're in a room, I'd say, how many of you drink coffee? And so if you're a coffee drinker, you know when you get that little coffee stir. So it's not really a straw, it's a stir, and it has a tiny, tiny little hole. So this is really helping us focus on the exhalation. And if you want to have some fun with students to talk about how important breath work is, you can Google LeBron James and straw breath, and you'll see a couple of timeouts. This was a technique LeBron James used very frequently in the fourth quarter, right? So LeBron James, if you don't know, is a famous basketball player, played for the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Miami Heat, Los Angeles Lakers. And this is a way to quarter of a basketball game. So the way we get to this is you're going to do a deep inhale, and then you're going to breathe through a tiniest, tiny little, it's going to take a long, long, slow exhale through a really small coffee straw with that little space in your mouth. So let's do that together. Deep breath in and exhale through the coffee straw. At the count of 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Back to regular breathing. A couple of regular deep breaths. If it's comfortable, go ahead and close your eyes or look down. And now inhale again, deeply, and breathe out through the coffee straw. We'll do one more. Deep breath in and exhale for 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Inhale. And this time exhale for 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And now back to regular breathing. Helpful if your feet are flat on the floor and your spine as tall and long as it can be. Now last time, straw breath. Inhale deeply and let's exhale for 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And any comments or suggestions or observations? What do you notice about the state of mind or how the straw breath compared to victory breath?
Hey there, Matt. I'm going to jump in and say I found the straw breathing different because it made me think about the counting. So I had to focus on the breathing rather than thinking about something else. So that was very helpful for me. So thank you. And I want to thank you for your time this morning. If anybody has any last minute questions, let's get to those. Please type them in the chat. It really was a lovely session. I am so much more relaxed than I was when I first joined.
Imagine, right? So again, breath is the fastest, best way to do it. So I just want to get everybody's attention to the survey. Please fill this out. Give Lucy and the team, all the volunteers, some great feedback so we can improve and get better. Some more glow housekeeping. And again, please share on social media, take some screenshots, and learn about these techniques. Leadership and wellness go hand in hand. And especially if you are a leader, you need to take care of yourself. You are the most, not the most important, an important piece. Don't think that it's selfish to do what you need to do for your own wellness. So please do that. And then also go ahead and join the Actionable Innovations Global Community as well if you've not done that. I am a part of it on LinkedIn and the website, and it's a wonderful community to get lots of ideas. So thanks everybody for your session. And any comments, questions, feel free to email me. I'm happy to share more resources or information on leadership and wellness for your school and community.
Thank you so much, Matt. I'm going to stop the stream right now and go on